A very big thank you to Cookies by Design for sponsoring this video. Use the link in the description to check out the Graduation Celebration Bouquet at cookiesbydesign.com. Celebrate this major milestone with a unique graduation gift to say congrats you did it. Same-day delivery available.
The house looks just like the one next to it, and the one next to that, and the one next to that. A young couple live in it.
Give Ken a kiss.
You are so obnoxious.
With their 3 children.
Honey, chew each bite 10 times.
And something more.
They're here.
Sweetie, remember last night? Do you remember when you woke up and you said they were here?
Uh-huh.
Well, who did you mean? Who's here?
TV people.
Something's funny going on here next door. Something,
We were wondering if maybe you had experienced any disturbances lately.
What kind of disturbances?
I don't know what hovers over this house. I've never sensed anything like it.
That thing is in there with my baby!
They're hungry.
Now Steven Spielberg crosses a frightening new threshold into a world within our own. Its form is revealed.
What is it?
Its focus is clear. And the games are over. Poltergeist. It knows what scares you.
The word poltergeist comes from the German words poltern, meaning to rumble, and Geist, meaning spirit. These entities are infamous for their disruptive behavior, loud noises, moving objects, and even physical attacks. But are they ghosts? Or something else entirely? The first recorded poltergeist activity dates back to 856 CE. In Germany, the death of Rabbinus Maurus, a prominent Benedictine monk and writer who became the Archbishop of Mainz, may have kicked off the events that led to the first documented instance of what could be classified as poltergeist-like activity in Germany around this time. A farmhouse was reportedly plagued by loud banging noises and flying stones. These early accounts described poltergeists as malevolent forces tied to specific locations or individuals. In 1662, John Mompesson of Tedworth in southeast Wiltshire, England, now named Tidworth, sued a drummer for extortion. After confiscating his drum, Mompesson's home was besieged by nocturnal drumming. Was it witchcraft? Or the wrath of an unseen spirit? early 1800s, Adams, Tennessee. The Bell family, led by John Bell Sr., a prosperous farmer, lives peacefully along the Red River. John, his wife Lucy, and their children have a solid life, until 1817, when things start to get weird. Really fucking weird. It's a tale that's haunted Tennessee for over 2 centuries, a story so eerie, so unsettling, that it's still whispered around campfires and debated by skeptics and believers alike. Let's take a look at the case of the Bell Witch, and perhaps we may unravel the mystery. One day, John Bell spots something strange, a creature that looks like a dog with the head of a rabbit. He shoots at it, but it vanishes. His son Drew sees a giant bird, and his daughter Betsy claims she saw a girl in a green dress swinging from a tree limb, only to disappear. Even the family's slave, Dean, reports being followed by a large black dog on his way to visit his wife. Strange noises start happening in the Bell home. Knocking on doors, chains dragging across the floor, and guttural gnawing sounds on their beds. The Bell Witch's activity centers mostly on Betsy, the youngest daughter. She's slapped, pinched, scratched, and even poked with pins. The family is terrified, but they don't know what to do. A family friend, James Johnston, comes to help. He spends a night at the Bell home and experiences the same phenomena. The next morning, he tells John Bell it's a spirit, just like in the Bible. Word spreads, and soon people from miles around come to witness the haunting. The spirit begins to speak, a voice that identifies itself as Kate, claiming to be the witch of Old Kate Batts, a local woman rumored to have had a grudge against John Bell. After his death, Kate tells the family she will leave but promises to return in 7 years. She does come back briefly, but the family refuses to engage her, and she disappears again. Over the years, the story has been told and retold, with new layers added, from prophecies to ghostly cave encounters. The Bell Witch Cave, near the Bell Farm, became a hot spot for paranormal activity and lore. Fast forward to the 20th and 21st centuries, the Bell Witch legend remains alive. Paranormal investigators, historians, and thrill-seekers visit the Bell Witch Cave, reporting strange knocks, orbs of light, and even voices. Some say the Bell Witch was a demon, others a restless spirit or poltergeist. What's undeniable is the sheer number of witnesses who experienced something unexplainable. And the witch's chilling ability to be in multiple places at once, read minds, and mimic voices remains unmatched. What makes the Bell Witch story so terrifying isn't just the ghostly attacks or the death of a man. It's that this haunting was witnessed by many, not just one family. It's a well-documented event with layers of mystery, folklore, and fear that have endured for over 200 years. And maybe, just maybe, the Bell Witch is still out there, lurking in the shadows of that Tennessee forest, waiting for the next curious soul to cross her path. So, if you ever find yourself near Robertson County, Tennessee, be careful where you wander, because the Bell Witch might just be watching. Before we begin our journey into one of England's most notorious haunted locations, let me set the stage for what you're about to experience. Borley Rectory, once standing quietly in Essex, England, earned the chilling title of the most haunted house in England through decades of reported supernatural occurrences. From ghostly nuns and headless horsemen to mysterious wall writings and unexplained sounds, this massive Gothic structure's history is layered with terror, tragedy, and perhaps a fair measure of deception. The story begins in the quiet village of Borley, Essex, in the southeast of England. Picture a place so unassuming, so ordinary, that the extraordinary events reported there seem all the more unsettling. Narrow country roads wind through rolling farmland, connecting scattered hamlets that make up the parish. At the heart of this community stood Borley Church, its nave dating possibly as far back as the 12th century, a silent witness to generations of life and death. It was here in 1862 that the Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull decided to build a substantial new rectory. The previous rectory had been destroyed by fire in 1841, a fact that would prove eerily prophetic. Bull, who had just been named rector of the parish, needed a suitable home for himself and what would eventually become his 14 children. The result was a massive Gothic revival structure, 4 stories tall, containing 32 rooms including 11 bedrooms, and boasting approximately 7,500 square feet of floor space, set on 11 acres of grounds. Can you imagine moving your family into a newly built home, only to begin hearing unexplained footsteps within the first year? Local memories suggest that's exactly what happened at Borley as early as 1863. Something about this building seemed to attract the uncanny from the very beginning. Let's pause and consider what made this building so perfect for haunting. The architectural style alone evokes a sense of mystery, of connections to a darker past. Tall, narrow windows that catch the moonlight at odd angles. Gabled roofs that creak and settle in the night wind. Long, empty corridors where sounds echo strangely. And remember, this was a house never connected to gas or electricity. Imagine dark winter evenings lit only by oil lamps and candles, shadows dancing on the walls, the isolation of rural England in the Victorian era. Reverend Henry Bull and his family were the first to report strange occurrences at the rectory. With 14 children running through the halls, you might expect some unusual noises, but what the Bull children described went beyond ordinary explanation. They reported hearing unexplained footsteps throughout the house and saw what they believed was the ghost of a nun. The family and locals also reported seeing a phantom coach driven by 2 headless horsemen. Imagine the terror of hearing the approach of horse hooves and carriage wheels on a moonless night, looking out your window, and seeing this. I'd probably shit my pants. Ernest Ambrose, the local organist, later said that the Bull family were very convinced that they had seen an apparition on several occasions. When Reverend Henry Bull died in 1892, his son, Reverend Henry Harry Foister Bull, took over both the parish and the rectory. The younger Bull continued to experience phenomena similar to what his father had witnessed. What must it have been like to grow up in such a place, and then choose to remain there as an adult? Did the hauntings become simply another aspect of daily life, like the temperamental plumbing or the drafty windows? Now, every good ghost story needs a tragic backstory, and Borley Rectory is no exception. Legend claims that a Benedictine monastery had been built in the area around 1362, and that a monk from this monastery had conducted a forbidden relationship with a nun from a nearby convent. According to the story, when their affair was discovered, the monk was executed, and the nun was bricked up alive within the convent walls, a particularly horrifying form of punishment that appears in numerous ghost stories. It's a chilling tale, but here's where things get interesting. This legend was investigated in 1938 and found to have no historical basis whatsoever. In fact, researchers concluded it was likely fabricated by the rector's children to add a romantic and Gothic flair to their already spooky home. The detail about the nun being walled up alive may have been borrowed from popular fiction of the time, either Rider Haggard's novel Montezuma's Daughter, from 1893, or Walter Scott's epic poem Marmion, from 1808. Humans have always loved a good ghost story, and will happily embellish or create their own when the setting seems appropriate. But importantly, this fabricated legend doesn't explain away the phenomena reported by multiple families and visitors over the decades. After Harry Bull's death on June 9, 1927, Borley Rectory stood vacant for over a year. On October 2, 1928, Reverend Guy Eric Smith and his wife moved in, unaware of the house's reputation. Their peaceful residency didn't last long. Shortly after moving in, Mrs. Smith allegedly discovered a brown paper package containing the skull of a young woman while cleaning out a cupboard. Imagine your first few weeks in a new home, trying to make it your own, only to find something so macabre tucked away in a dark corner. This discovery would be disturbing in any house, but it marked just the beginning of the Smiths' troubles. Soon the Smiths were reporting a variety of unsettling incidents. Servant bells ringing despite being disconnected, lights appearing in windows when no one was in those rooms, and unexplained footsteps throughout the house. The isolation of the rectory must have amplified their fears. Alone in a massive house with strange noises echoing through empty rooms, each creak and groan taking on sinister significance in the dead of night. At their wits' end, the Smiths reached out to the Daily Mirror newspaper, asking to be connected with the Society for Psychical Research. The Mirror, sensing a sensational story, promptly dispatched a reporter who wrote the first in a series of articles about Borley Rectory's mysteries. More significantly, on June 12, 1929, the paper arranged for Harry Price, a well-known paranormal researcher, to make his first visit to the house. Harry Price was no ordinary ghost hunter. He was an expert in conjuring and sleight of hand, skills that would prove relevant to his investigation. He presented himself as a scientific investigator of the paranormal, bringing a veneer of legitimacy to the field. What happened during Price's visit has been debated ever since. Immediately upon his arrival, phenomena of an entirely new kind reportedly began to occur. Stones, a vase, and other objects were thrown around by unseen forces. As soon as Price left the rectory, these particular occurrences ceased entirely. Mrs. Smith later voiced her suspicions that Price himself might have been fabricating these phenomena. Whether due to genuine fear or suspicion of Price, the Smiths left Borley on July 14, 1929, after less than a year in residence. The parish then had significant difficulty finding a replacement rector. The house's reputation was spreading. On October 16, 1930, Reverend Lionel Algernon Foister moved into the rectory with his wife Mary Ann and their adopted daughter Adelaide. Foister was a first cousin of the Bulls, so perhaps he felt some familial connection to the property despite its growing notoriety. Whatever his reasons, the Foister family's 5-year stay would produce the most intense and disturbing phenomena in Borley's history. Lionel Foister documented various strange incidents between 1930 and 1935. These included bells ringing without apparent cause, windows shattering, stones and bottles being thrown by unseen forces. Most disturbing were the wall writings that began to appear, messages that seemed to be pleas for help from someone named Mary Ann, the same name as Foister's wife. The phenomena seemed to focus particularly on Mary Ann Foister, who was only in her early 30s at the time and decades younger than her husband. She reported being thrown from her bed by unseen forces. On one terrifying occasion, their adopted daughter Adelaide was attacked by something horrible that she couldn't or wouldn't describe. Reverend Foister, a man of faith confronted with apparent demonic forces in his own home, tried twice to conduct exorcisms. Picture the scene: a clergy member standing in his own home, holy water and Bible in hand, commanding evil spirits to depart. These weren't ghost stories told around campfires. This was a family living in genuine terror. During the first exorcism attempt, Foister was struck in the shoulder by a fist-sized stone that seemed to materialize from nowhere. Imagine the psychological impact of that moment, actively trying to combat evil forces and being physically attacked in response. After the Foisters departed in 1935, Borley Rectory stood vacant once again. By this time, Harry Price had been following the rectory's story for years. In May 1937, he took the extraordinary step of signing a year-long rental agreement with Queen Anne's Bounty, the owners of the property. Price wasn't planning to live in the haunted house himself. Instead, he launched a remarkable experiment. Through an advertisement in the Times newspaper on May 25, 1937, and subsequent personal interviews, he recruited a team of 48 official observers. These were mostly students who agreed to spend periods, mainly on weekends, at the rectory with instructions to document any paranormal activity they witnessed. Imagine volunteering to spend your weekend in England's most haunted house. You arrive with your notebook and perhaps some scientific equipment. As darkness falls, you take your assigned position in one of the 32 rooms. The house creaks and groans around you. Was that a footstep in the hallway? Is that shadow moving, or are your eyes playing tricks? For a full year, Price's observers came and went, creating what must be one of the most extensive investigations of a single haunted location in history. Their reports would form the basis for Price's books about Borley, which would cement its reputation as the most haunted house in England. In March 1938, while Price's investigation was still ongoing, a woman named Helen Glanville conducted a planchette séance in Streatham, London. Helen was the daughter of S.J. Glanville, one of Price's helpers. A planchette is a small board supported by 2 casters and a pencil, used in spiritualist séances for automatic writing. According to Price, during this séance, Helen made contact with 2 spirits. The first identified herself as Marie Lair, a French nun who had left her religious order and traveled to England to marry a member of the Waldegrave family. According to this spirit, she had been murdered in an older building on the site where Borley Rectory now stood, and her body was either buried in the cellar or thrown into a disused well. Remember those messages addressed to Mary Ann? According to this seance, they weren't meant for Marian Foister at all, but were the murdered nun's attempts to communicate across centuries. The second spirit to allegedly communicate through the planchette was far more ominous. This entity identified itself as Sunex Amours and made a chilling prediction. It would set fire to Borley Rectory at 9 o'clock that very night, March 27, 1938. Furthermore, this spirit claimed that the fire would reveal the bones of a murdered person. There was no fire that night, but it wouldn't take long until there was. By 1939, Borley Rectory had a new owner, Captain W.H. Gregson. 11 months after the seance prediction of fire, on February 27, 1939, Captain Gregson was unpacking boxes in the hallway when he accidentally knocked over an oil lamp. Remember that the rectory had never been connected to gas or electricity, and oil lamps provided the only illumination after dark. The fire spread quickly through the old wooden structure. Within hours, the rectory that had stood for 77 years was severely damaged. A local resident, Miss Williams from nearby Borley Lodge, claimed she saw the figure of the ghostly nun in an upstairs window during the fire. According to Harry Price, she demanded a fee of 1 guinea for telling her story, an interesting detail that might make us question her credibility. After investigating the blaze, the insurance company came to a disturbing conclusion. The fire seemed to have been started deliberately. Had Captain Gregson destroyed the house for insurance money? Or was there a more sinister explanation? Remember the seance prediction that a fire would reveal the bones of a murder victim? In August 1943, Harry Price conducted a brief dig in the cellars of the ruined house and discovered 2 bones thought to be from a young woman. These bones were given a Christian burial in Liston churchyard, as the parish of Borley refused to allow the ceremony to take place. Local opinion held that the bones actually belonged to a pig, not a human. Whether human or animal, the discovery of bones after a predicted fire added yet another layer to Borley's legend. The rectory's physical existence had ended, but its story was far from over. As Borley Rectory's fame grew through Harry Price's books and articles, the Society for Psychical Research decided to conduct its own formal investigation. The SPR had a reputation for scientific rigor in examining paranormal claims, and its members included both believers and skeptics. The SPR's conclusions were damning. Their report rejected most of the reported sightings as either imagined or deliberately fabricated. Moreover, they cast serious doubt on Harry Price's credibility as an investigator. According to their findings, many of the most dramatic phenomena reported at Borley occurred only when Price was present and ceased when he left. Remember that Price was an expert in conjuring and sleight of hand. The SPR investigators suggested that he may have manufactured evidence to support the rectory's haunted reputation, possibly to advance his career and sell books. After all, there's no publicity like being the expert on the most haunted house in England. The SPR's report didn't completely dismiss all the phenomena reported at Borley. Some incidents remained unexplained, and may suggest that unseen forces of the scary type may have been present. However, the SPR did suggest that much of what made Borley famous was exaggerated or entirely made up. In 2000, decades after the rectory's destruction, a man named Louis Mayerling, who had lived at Borley until it was destroyed, made a startling claim. According to Mayerling, he had been enlisted by the rector's family to wear a costume and wander the grounds in the evening to perpetuate the ghostly rumors. Mayerling also explained that much of the other phenomena was perpetrated by servants and children who had access to secret doors and passageways throughout the house. The mysterious knocking sounds that had frightened so many? Possibly just a noisy water heater. These confessions add yet another layer to the Borley mystery. Were all the phenomena hoaxes perpetrated by bored rural families? Or were there genuine, inexplicable events that inspired the hoaxes? And if everything was fake, why did multiple unrelated families report similar experiences? Many researchers believe poltergeists are tied to children or teenagers experiencing extreme periods of adolescent stress. Others suggest that this phenomena has natural causes. In some cases, no explanations, scientific or otherwise, can be found. All around the world, poltergeists have fascinated and terrified cultures worldwide. They remind us that some mysteries remain unsolved. Whether you believe in them or not, poltergeists challenge our understanding of reality. Are they restless spirits? Manifestations of human energy? Or simply tricks played by our minds? One thing's certain, they're not going away anytime soon. Thank you for coming along with me on this wild trip through some very weird dimensions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay spooky.